intentional.
Well, we get a kick out of talking to you anyway, so it's all good. Um, all right, so well, let's kick off and just talk about what's going on. I guess, Rod, you've got two channels going. Have you done much with the Carnivore channel recently?
I was just saying to you off air, so I had a slight break 3 or 4 weeks since my last. Well, actually, I posted a community post a couple of days ago to say that I'm still around and I haven't disappeared, but I've just taken a break because I've got another channel and I've got 4 kids and a full-time job. When I first started the channel, I didn't have full-time work, so I'm just juggling all of those things together, and also just thinking about what I want to do with the channel, because I originally started just talking about carnivore, and and then I've sort of added in a bit of philosophy into there as well. And I was talking to my wife about this on the weekend, about feeling like it's a bit stagnant as to what direction I'm taking. And I think the right thing for me, at least, is just to talk about what I'm curious about at the time. So I've pretty much integrated, mostly eating the carnivore way into my life, and that works for me. And I don't know that I've got a lot more to add to that, except for perhaps occasionally talk about, what I eat in a day. And but there's other things that I'm interested in as well. So I think that's sort of the way forward for me, is just to talk about what I'm curious about rather than sort of getting stuck on always talking about the one thing. At least that's what's works.
Yeah,
works
I
for me.
agree. Yeah. I mean, there's only so much you can talk about your food in there. Like, this is what I eat today. It's like
Yeah,
do a
that's what I
daily
feel like.
vlog
Yeah,
of the same food.
and especially the way I eat. I tend to eat ground beef and eggs a lot. And some days that's just I just like things simple. I'm like Lily Kane, like things really simple, straightforward, fast. I just and I that's food that I enjoy, and it's just super boring. So I've already spoken about that. I've created a couple of recipes about it, but that's really all I can say.
Yeah, yeah, I get that. Yeah, yeah. So it's kind of I know some people sort of, I don't know, that they love to just to keep on talking about the same what they eat all day and what they keep doing and on carnival and how they feel and that sort of stuff. But I think, like, you're right, it gets a bit boring, doesn't it, when you're just thinking, oh, I'm having ground beef and eggs again, and you're doing that every day, you know. So,
Yeah,
what about
personally,
you?
it's not boring to eat, but I
Oh
don't know.
yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah, but it's
yeah,
I don't know how much more you can say.
yeah, that's right. Not much more you can say about it, is there? So I think it's good, like incorporate more things, like just I suppose it sort of shows people a bit more about yourself as well. Like, just show the things that you're interested in,
Mm,
and
yeah,
like you're saying, philosophy and other things too. I mean, no one is just one thing. No one has, no one has just one view on one topic. That would be completely, boring for anyone. So,
yeah.
you know, how about you, Rick? What have you been doing recently?
Usual. I'm always trying to find a way to survive between the jobs that I do and then stuff I'm trying to do for myself. There's never a moment when I'm not busy. Although I did sort of do a little experiment that was kind of an answer to a couple of my friends. I tried adding fruit to my diet. I lasted 3 days, had a total digestive disaster, and gave up. So it just told me I got to stay away from the fruit.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. I mean, it's good to test yourself, though. I think we
Yeah,
all should do.
it's like you said, if you do the same thing over and over again, yeah, you kind of get used to it. But once in a while, I like to make a couple of changes. And, people challenge me. I said, look, as long as it's a whole food, and I was just eating bananas that I got from my front yard. So I know that there's no glyphosate or anything else. But, it's, I try it. If I think, hey, maybe it's different. But now the result is always the same, it seems.
Yeah. Actually, I was talking to Sarah Pugh recently, and just listening to some of her other talks about like our circadian rhythm, where we live on the equator, and things like that. As to how much or how many carbs we can actually consume. Like, if you're in a tropical climate, like you're in Florida, um, you can get away with eating more carbs. It's like again, like you said, like if it's locally like grown in your yard, you can go out and pick it, that sort of thing, like on a seasonal thing in summer. Like you're going into summer now, so it's a perfect time for you to eat, a little bit of fruit, carbs, and things
Mm-hmm.
like that.
Yeah.
And it's not going to, it's certainly not going to be so detrimental because you can actually, especially when it's so hot, you're sweating a lot, so you're going to get rid of any kind of deuterium that carbohydrates have.
Right.
Um,
Well,
so I think
I
it's a
think
big
what
difference.
it is though, I think in my case I'm kind of sensitive to fructose. That's why I can't eat the ripe bananas. The ripe bananas always give me trouble. But if I eat
Yeah,
the plantains or the burro bananas when they're green, I cook them in beef tallow and they actually don't have a bad effect on me. In fact, sometimes they actually help me get more work done. If I mix it, I have them with my chicken or with my iguana. They do help, but the ripe ones, it's like I was telling a friend of mine, they just don't agree with me, and I'm beginning to think that I'm just too sensitive to fructose.
yeah, could be. I mean, you haven't had you basically. I mean, I think you probably had the minimalist amount there to any other human since you were a teenager. So,
Yeah,
um, yeah, I'd say so.
and it's true because they do say that. I mean, obviously, our body produces glucose on a regular basis just to survive. So, if I
Yeah,
was to eat a high glucose fruit like a plantain, it's I guess my body can deal with it. But when it comes to anything that's sweet, like anything the nasty fruits like apples or the real sweet oranges or whatever, they don't agree with me. I can eat the sour oranges and I can use lemons to marinate meat. It doesn't bother me. But it seems like the more sweet, the more fruity it is, the worse it is. The
yeah,
absolute worst fruit for me is grapes. I cannot eat grapes because they make me feel really sick.
yeah, yeah. And they're super sweet, aren't they? So,
Yes.
yeah, especially like store bought sort of stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah, that makes sense. I suppose like the green bananas would be higher in deuterium, but like you said, you cook them, so that would sort of get rid of a lot of that too.
Yeah, I
And plus,
usually cook them with beef
yeah,
tallow.
yeah. Plus, you live in a hot climate, so that would get rid of the deuterium from your body as well. Certainly
Mm-hmm.
helps. Yeah,
Right.
that's a really cool thing. Actually, I was just talking to Sarah about that stuff. Yeah, cold therapy, heat therapy, even red light therapy, sweating, movement just gets rid of deuterium from your body. And, just another, yet more proof that carbohydrates are just not good for us, because they are higher in deuterium,
Mm-hmm.
which, blocks cycles like the Krebs cycle.
Right.
Uh, you got a question here, mate. How did you come to be carnivore 40 years ago before it
Well,
was a thing that I know of?
well, my story's been out there several times, but the main thing I can say is that I just was very upset and I wanted to basically I didn't want to go to high school. I thought back then everything was low fat and avoid the meat and the tallow and the lard and all that. So I just rebelled. I said I'm just going to eat the worst thing I can possibly eat. And since I like meat anyway, I just refused to eat the vegetables. I I didn't see the purpose. I thought, you know what, I'll just eat all the meat. I'll end up getting sick and then I won't have to worry about going to school, but uh the results were just the opposite.
That's correct. That was so funny actually. There's a good actually. Me and Rick had an interview a little while ago, so you guys can check that out if you want to hear Rick's full story. It's really interesting and it's very funny too. But yeah, to just eat meat because he thought it was going to give him a heart attack, so he could stay home from school. But it ended up, it was quite a blessing, really, wasn't it? Because you actually did so much better in school after just going to a meat diet. You know?
Yeah, my grade point average went from C to A. And not only that, I went from being one of the shortest kids in school to the second tallest when I graduated high school. I mean, you can
Yeah,
see a picture of me on my YouTube community page, how small I was compared to everybody else. So it was shocking to me. And the amazing thing is that all these things happen, and I never realized until recently that it was because of what I ate. I just didn't think about it. It's one of those things that I did, and I don't know. I didn't even think about it when I was growing. But how do I? I don't know how to explain it, but now I have a better idea of what really happened.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the growth and and your grade point average, I think that's remarkable. In just a short period too. I think because you were so young, you didn't have so many years of putting toxic food into your system either. That would certainly help. So
And I had another side effect. I haven't been to a dentist since 1986. My teeth grew in crooked. My jaw was a little too small, and you can see they're kind of crowded in there. And what they wanted to do, they wanted to put those braces on there and pull out teeth and do all that. And I just thought it was a stupid idea. So I thought, oh, forget it. I'm not going to go to the dentist anymore. But the interesting thing is the upper jaw, it actually straightened out on its own. The bottom, it didn't straighten out, but I'm beginning to think maybe because when I started the carnivore diet, part of it was still growing and it expanded. So there's a lot of weird effects that I didn't realize until now, and I haven't had a cavity since I was since like 1981 or 1982. So that's another side effect of the carnivore diet, it seems.
yeah, yeah, definitely. That's
Mm.
remarkable too, isn't it? How
Yeah.
about you, Rod? How did you come to the carnivore diet?
So it's just out of curiosity, mostly. I guess I didn't have any autoimmune issues or anything like that. But when I saw Dr. Jordan Peterson's interview, and the health benefits that he'd had, so not only the things that he'd cured, but how he was just in absolute peak health, and I thought, well, I want some of that. So yeah, that really is the reason that I started. I did have a couple of issues, like I had sciatica. I'd had sciatica for quite a long time, and I thought maybe that would help, which I did cure, but I'm not sure if it was the carnivore diet that did it. But it actually, the investigation kind of led me to a solution for that. And yeah, I'm just listening to Rick there. One thing that completely went away, I used to get gingivitis quite a lot. So, bleeding gums, and every time I was in the dentist, I was getting a cavity filled. So that I think as soon as you drop off carbohydrates, I think my guess is, without really knowing for sure, the bacteria, plaque, etc., really feed on carbohydrates. So once I drop my carbohydrates right down, then that all just went away. So I've not had any issues with my gums or anything for really since I started.
Yeah,
And I just like the simplicity of it, and just knowing that. My oldest son, my 15-year-old son, he really hates fruit and vegetables. He just, ever since he was a really small child, he would not eat them. And, myself and my wife, we thought, oh, well, that's not going to be good for his health. But it was good to learn as a result of being part of this community that you're fine without it. You don't actually need to
yeah,
have them. If you want to have them, great. But if you don't actually need them to be able to maintain health. So it's, he kind of eats similar the way that I do, and then he's just learning as well. So at the same time I'm learning. So he's learned that if he wants to add weight on, he's actually got to add in some carbohydrates. He simply cannot gain weight fast enough because he chews up too much energy if he's just having meat only. So it's interesting watching him experiment, but also knowing that he's fine if he just wants to eat meat and eggs. Well, that's completely fine.
oh, okay. Has he tried extra protein rather than extra carbs, or?
Yeah. So he experiments. So
Well, that's good.
which I think that's the key. I think just experimenting, trying out different things from time to time, and I think it's also what's easy. He's like me; he likes to take shortcuts and do things as simply as possible. So to add in a cup of cooked rice is simple, and that gets the result that he wants. But he does add in heavy cream. Sometimes I buy heavy cream. He really likes soft cheeses, so I think they help. I think he's got to eat something like about 4,500 calories a day to be actually able to gain weight, because it's just the nature of a 15-year-old, and he trains a lot. Like he does sprint
Yeah,
training and other
yeah.
things, so he needs a lot of
Active kids
calories.
go through a lot of
Yeah.
food.
Mm.
Yeah, so, yeah, that'd be hell on your budget.
Yeah, well, fortunately, it's he really likes ground beef like I do. So, in Australia, as you know, ground beef's pretty cheap. It's like
Yeah,
so in America, four
about
and a half
ten
pounds
dollars.
is about $20. Yeah, $20 Australian. So that's it's about $3 a pound.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's very good. Excellent. Yeah, it's good to see kids doing like eating like that. And I think, like when kids are born, like the vegetables and all the stuff that we feed them, there's a very much an acquired taste, fruit and everything else as well. Like you learn to eat them, you learn to like them, sort of thing. But it's yeah, I never liked veggies much when I was a kid either. But there's always if you want to be healthy, you have to eat them. That sort of garbage. But our parents didn't know any better either. So, very cool. So, I mean, it's a great thing. Another great thing would be to see, like, it'd be good if you could see in the future, like, you're seeing your kids growing up now on Carnivore. They're going to be, I think, pretty much like Rick. They're pretty much superhuman. Like he's so young. No grey hair. He's still vibrant, fit. No aches and pains. That'd be awesome. Be an amazing life. So, how'd you do in school? I'm kind of curious about that now because after Rick's story, how's his schoolwork going?
It's just an average student. He's way more interested in sports and athletics.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, I think he could anything he applies himself to, he does well in. But it's his. I think he's been able to leverage diet with his training. So it would be interesting to see how he goes this year because the athletics cycle is going to start like in a couple of months, I think, where they start actually having competitions. So he's been training and he's switched his diet. When I started like almost a year ago, it would be very interesting to see how well he actually does with that. I'm expecting that he'll kill it for sure.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. All right, cool. So we were talking about before, like it gets a bit boring just talking about Carnivore and stuff. So let's talk about what other interests do you guys have? I know Rick, you have a varied sort of life, like existence. I I love the self resilience that you have. I mean, you're probably the only urban hunter that in the West, I would say.
Oh yeah. Well, there's those delicious iguanas and ducks out there, so why would I pass them up? Plus, I even have wild chickens. Once in a while, I get a couple of those, and they're pretty tasty. So it seems like a waste not to go after them.
Yeah, I suppose you put it that way. It does seem like a bit of a waste, doesn't it? You're
Yep.
surrounded by wildlife. Why not, take advantage of it?
Yeah,
But
especially the iguanas that nobody likes them. They're always tearing up the yard, digging holes, and people are like, "I got to get rid of those stupid things." I said, "Don't worry, I'll bring my crossbow. I'll get some of them." I've come home sometimes with 10 iguanas. In fact, I made a video one time. I had a bunch of them in the kitchen sink that I was cooking up, and they can be really good. I mean, depending on where you get them from, they can taste awesome.
yeah, I might give that a try sometime. Like sometimes I go out to my dad's place. They have we don't have iguanas in Australia, but we do have goannas, a large lizard.
Mm,
Last time I was a little while ago, one of them must have eaten a cane toad, and it died in the front yard. There's, there's holes all over the place because they dig into the ground. They sort of live under the ground.
mm-hmm.
But this one, he must have died by eating a cane toad, and he was about 5 foot long. He was, as tall as me, lengthwise. So they get quite big. Be a
That's
lot of
good.
meat on them. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like down here. I mean, they have alligators, but that's more of a hunting thing. Got to get a license for that. But the iguanas, they're considered to be invasive. You can kill them anywhere that they're at. And my yard was taken over though then because I like to grow fruits and vegetables for my friends. I had papayas and bananas. They were eating all my papayas. They were eating my bananas. So I started killing them. And I killed one. I thought, well, it looks like I could probably eat this thing. And that was probably 10, 15 years ago, and I cooked it for the first time, and it was actually quite good. It was somewhere between fish and chicken, and ever since then, I've had a taste for iguana, and it's really good. Same thing with the ducks. The ducks are more friendly to me. I like to feed them, and they're fun to hang out with. But once in a while, you get one that's aggressive and destructive. And I remember I killed one a long time ago that was basically attacking the ducklings. And I thought, well, what would it be like to eat him? And it turned out that he tasted as good as a steak. It was so delicious. I go, wow, I can't believe these things are all over the place and nobody's cooking them up. But yeah, the wildlife, it can be very good. Plus, it's free range. So you know that it's not confined. It's not being fed a bunch of corn and soy. I mean, who knows what they're eating? I know they eat just about anything, but they do eat a lot of bugs, and bugs are good for birds. I mean, they eat seeds, but they also eat bugs. I even have a roach farm that I feed to my ducks every now and then.
Yeah, I saw one of those roaches must have got in there. Was it last week?
Yep.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh
you
yeah,
showed me.
I have roaches. I had one time I was doing an interview and a roach just crawled up on the table and I grabbed it and I took it threw it to the ducks. I've had them come out of the drain in the kitchen. I made a video on that too. I think I was cooking heart attack chicken and then a roach came up. I picked it out of the kitchen sink and I took it outside, threw it to the ducks, and they snapped it up in a second.
Some
Yeah,
most
well,
people are too squeamish to pick up roaches.
Ah,
I had one
actually,
that
that
crawled into
reminds me
my
of a funny
wife's.
story. Yeah,
it's
one
funny.
guy.
I pick up bugs all the time. I don't even think about it.
Yeah, it reminds me of a funny story. Not long after we first came back to Australia, my wife picked up this bug from the floor where we were staying, and she picked it up. So look, I found a beetle. It's the first time she'd seen one, right? And she's being Japanese, and she's saying, "Oh, look, I found a beetle! I found a beetle! It's just this little tiny thing." I said, you know that's a cockroach, right?" And she looked, it's just a small baby cockroach. She said, "It can't be, it's too small." I said, "Yeah, they're not all born big, they have to grow." And then she just freaked out. The cockroach. She was fine when she thought it was a beetle, but when she found out the cockroach, she freaked out. She started screaming, running around, gotta scrub the hand. It was funny. Uh, but
Well, we have those
that's
tiny little German cockroaches. You get these small ones. You get the big
yeah.
ones that come from outside, the big sort of dark brown ones, and then
Hmm.
you
Yeah.
got those little. They always just seem like really nasty. Those little German ones that they're like, ugh, I can't. Don't mind the big
Yeah.
ones. I'll catch them and throw them back outside. But the German ones,
Yeah. The
they get
little
squashed.
German ones I've never had in the house, but the big ones, they fly around. They'll fly
Yeah.
right in.
So, yeah. Those big ones, some of those big ones here, geez, you could put a saddle on them. Huge.
I've had them so big that the duck tried to eat it and had to spit it out because they couldn't swallow it.
Wow. Yeah, that's big. Yeah. That's another thing I like. I mean, it's really useful to have a bug farm like you've got because you're feeding them to the. I mean, you give them the birds, the ducks, and everything. And even the iguanas would eat them too. Their
Yeah.
natural food. So you're pretty much just a good self-reliance, a little farm like micro farm basically.
Yeah.
Uh,
And it's a good use for all the milk crates that I have because those milk contain, I mean, not milk crates, the egg crates that I have, they're just like cardboard and you stack them together in a box. You put some food in there and the roaches, they breed like crazy. And then you just take it outside and open it up and let the ducks have fun with it. And they just wipe out all the roaches.
that's good. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean that's. I mean, a lot of people need to be more people need to be more self-reliant like that too. They need to be able to source their own food, grow their food, or whatever you want to do. But I mean, I just think that's really cool. You make your own fuel and stuff too, yeah.
Yes, I make diesel out of plastic and I also burn used vegetable oil in my truck when it was running.
That's right.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's really cool. So your expenses would be fairly low then, wouldn't it? Your living expenses.
Oh, my living expenses are lower. My biggest expense is actually property tax. I spend more on that than I do all my other living expenses combined. I can
Yeah.
live on $500 a month with my living expenses between the meat and the things that I buy because I don't have to buy fuel. I make a lot of my own electricity. So when we get a hurricane and the power's off, I'm the only one that lives normal. I can keep my freezers going, I can keep my lights on, the air conditioner running. There's just a lot of options that I have because I can do so many things.
So you keep you have a generator for your electricity, or is it? Yeah.
Yeah, I have a generator. It's a wood gas generator. You basically take tree branches, demolition debris, whatever it is that you can burn, put it in a container, and it heats it up, makes it into a gas, which is basically a combination of hydrogen, carbon monoxide, and who knows what other gases are in there, methane probably, and then it just burns in the engine. So
Yeah.
I've done that for
Wow.
years. I had a truck that used to run on wood from about 1995 to 2008 when it finally just fell apart from rust.
Wow. Ha- Truck that ran on wood.
Yeah, it's called wood
So
gas. You can look it up.
yeah, that's amazing. I've
In
never heard of that. How
fact,
about
I
you, Rod?
started I started
Sorry.
on YouTube in 2007 I had two channels. One of them got removed because I got
Mm.
into a battle with these energy scammers, all these people with their free energy scams, and basically it turned into disaster. This channel got most of the videos deleted. There's still a couple of them on there from back then, but yeah, I've been doing this for a long time.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. How about you, Rod? Do you live in Sydney? Do you have a yard or anything like that, or you live in an apartment?
No, I personally live in an apartment, but my wife and I, we live in separate houses, which is a whole other story. But
Okay.
so she actually has a backyard. So when we're there, I get to have a bit of a backyard. She actually used to live in Nowra, so she had a larger property there.
Yeah.
So that I actually miss being in the nature because I grew up in the bush, as you know. But I'm fortunate I've still got a very large area of parkland right near where I live here. So,
Yeah.
I get out and walk every day at around midday, and there's generally no one around. It's because
Oh,
everyone
wow.
else is working or whatever. So I get to have this. Yeah, it's literally. I think it's probably 50 acres of parkland. It's called Heffron
Oh,
Park.
that's
So,
nice. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It'd be nice if you could use it though. It's from I think like even if you do have land here in Australia, you have to have all sorts of different permits and whatnot to actually do stuff on it. You actually build stuff and use it for like things like Rick does. So it's a real mess here. But like my old man, they've got like 7.5 acres out in the countryside, that 4 hours from Brisbane. But it's a really nice land. There's not a lot of topsoil out there, and they don't really do anything with it. They just cut the grass. Basically, they got 7.5 acre lawn. Basically, it's crazy to me. I mean, I've started like over the years. I've been planting trees and growing fruit trees and things like that out there when I get out there. Um, but other than that, they just want a lawn, which to me is nuts. I'd like to put some cows or something on there, but you have to be out there to do it. So
Yeah, or
yeah,
goats or sheep. Yeah.
yeah. Just any sort of ruminant animals, that would be good for. I don't see the point in having grass unless you're going to feed an animal with it. But there you go. I mean, I like growing trees though. Even the little yard, like I'm just in an apartment, but it's a ground floor with a little courtyard sort of thing. So
Hmm.
even that, I've planted a few trees in there, they're growing quite well. So I've got like mangoes, avocados, and passion fruits and that sort of stuff growing. I don't eat the stuff, but I still like the trees.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, my yard, I got rid of the lawn years ago. I turned it into a forest. So it's a suburban neighborhood. All the houses look almost the same, but mine looks like an empty lot. From the ground and the air, it looks like an empty lot. And I like it because, like, I was outside cutting up a junk car today, and people drive by, they don't see me. I'm not baking in the sun. The weather here is really bad, and my house, it doesn't have any insulation. So if it wasn't for the trees, my air conditioner would run so much that I'd run out of fuel in no time. But with all the shade, it's just so inexpensive to air condition it. Even if I run the power bill would only be $90 a month, and that's in the summer. And then when I'm running the generator, I may only pay the minimum, which is $30 a month. So it makes everything really cheap.
yeah, that's cool. Yeah, people don't realize like how cooling the shade of a tree is. like even if you are, like if you put up a shed, and even if you're in the shade of a shed, like it's still really hot. The shade under a tree is very different. You and
That's a
if you
yeah. A building will absorb the heat because the infrared heat that comes from the sun. I mean, it goes right through glass, and
yeah,
it'll heat up any structure, whether it's wood or concrete or whatever. But a tree basically is absorbing a lot of that energy in its photosynthesis process. And
yeah,
also, leaves are green, which is the perfect color to be able to absorb energy, but at the same time, not reflect it back. If you have a roof that's white, it's going to reflect the heat, but you're still going to get infrared coming through. But with plants, they don't get hot. I mean, if you go in the grass, if the grass is green, no matter how hot the sun is, the grass is never hot. And that's the beauty of plants because at the same time, they're evaporating water. And if you think about it, a lot of the commercial air conditioning systems, they use evaporating water as a way of keeping the condenser cooler. I mean, other than blowing air. And a tree does that automatically. It doesn't require anything except solar energy. You could be 15 degrees cooler under the tree than it is out in the sun.
yeah, yeah,
Mm.
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah,
And I mean,
plants are amazing for some things, aren't they?
oh, they're incredible. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not for eating, but yeah, everything else, yeah, they're good.
Well, our
Um,
food, our food eats plants, so that's important.
that's right. Yeah, yeah, they're important for our food. Yeah. So yeah, everything has its purpose, and it's like Chafee says this a lot too. Trying to live as naturally as possible in this very unnatural sort of world, but when you think about the processes, everything that grows on this planet is solar powered, basically, including us. Most of our energy actually comes from sound and light. It's only about, I think, like 30 to 40% actually comes from our food, really, because you can do. I mean, that's why, when you're going through fasting and you still have a lot of energy, you can go out and do things while you're fasting. You're getting that energy basically from, it's all stimulant from the sun, we are just as much solar powered as anything else. Um, it's really interesting, how light affects us, how heat and temperature, like temperature affects us, how sound affects us, but when you think about it, that's also how they sort of work against us too. If you sit down and watch TV, then all that sound, all that light, that blue light, and everything like that is working against you. That's damaging your mitochondria. And that's another. Actually, that's something some people should check out. Is Sarah Pugh does a thing on this. Jack Cruz, diabetes and mitochondria damage done by blue light and sound and things like that. So you guys should check it out because it's very interesting and certainly worth your while because it's more than just about your food. It's about your whole lifestyle. And trying to live
Mm.
like you know back in the days, like a lot of it is that our body clock is basically controlled by the sun. You know, our organs have a body clock as well, liver and everything, like when to produce more cholesterol, when to produce more hormones. Like when you wake up in the morning, you see the sunrise, your body sort of kicks into gear and say, okay, this is when I need more hormones production. And as you go through the day, as the light changes, you get lunchtime and afternoon and evening light. I think it's like you get your hormones will change to sort of slow you down a bit to get ready to go to sleep. And like I know some of the best times I like the best health that some of the best feelings I've had is when we didn't have any electricity. When it got dark, we slept. When it was light, we woke up, and that was actually some of the really good feeling not having electricity. Um,
Mm.
but you can't live like that in today's society. Um,
Well,
You can't go live in a cave, can you? So
well, that's like when we have a hurricane here and lose power to the whole, pretty much the whole city loses power. And but it's interesting because I do feel better when the power's off, even though I have power in my own home. So
yeah,
maybe it's just because the power grid is down and there's no EMF coming here. The little generator that I have, all this is an old house, so all the wires are in steel conduit. So I've used an EMF meter that is very low in this house. Plus, I have a lot of neighbors that have wireless internet, which I don't have. Everything I have is wired. So
yeah,
that may be part of it as well. I sleep really well, but the few times that I've been out of town and I've had to go in a hotel or motel, I have a very difficult time sleeping. So there's probably something to that.
yeah, yeah. I think so. Wi-Fi is, yeah, it's very. I know it's very handy, it's very useful and things like that, but it also affects the way our body clock sort of works and the way a lot of people sleep, a lot of people's hormone production, and like I said, it throws things like that, sound and uh, light waves and things like that. That all affects your body clock, and when your body clock's off, it's damaging your mitochondria.
Yeah. Well,
Mm.
it's like all my friends, everybody I know has a cell phone. I use this as a
Yeah,
camera. This is my
yeah,
phone,
mm. Yeah,
wired.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, I'm the same, Rick. Like I honestly, I only this is the only cell phone I have. It's but again, it's just a camera because I don't have a connection to a network or anything like that. And the only reason I bought that was so I could fake doing those like check-ins, those QR things a couple of years back. So that was it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but other than that, I don't, and I certainly try not to keep a phone up to my head. I don't really like talking on the phone to people. So, but
Yeah.
I have a landline. That's it.
I don't have a landline anymore. I got rid of that because it was too expensive. I use voice over IP, but it's a wired internet, and I have analog adapters. I have rotary phones. Believe it or not, when people laugh at me. I have a payphone in the front yard. The kids come over here. That my friends of mine. Oh, here, make a phone call on Rick's phone. I don't know how to use that phone. It's just funny every time you hand them a rotary phone, they get frustrated. Then finally they'll have to go to their regular phone and look it up on YouTube or something or Google, figure out how to use it.
Yeah,
it's an
that's
education.
Yep.
yeah,
In fact,
that's
I
really
made a
sad.
YouTube video years ago about how to use a payphone because my friends were saying, "Well, how do you do it?" So, before I started the carnivore videos, you can see it's one how to use a payphone. I think is my most popular video at the time.
Wow, I
What's
mean
your
that in
channel
itself
called,
is
Rick?
sad.
I haven't
My
checked it out.
channel is called Charger Mopar,
So,
Yeah,
right, okay, yeah,
named
yeah,
after my cars.
yeah.
makes sense.
So you don't know Rick Rod? Do you know
Oh,
each other?
I know of Rick, but no, this is the first time we've conversed at the
Oh,
same
okay.
time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought you must have known each other because they're both carnivores. But yeah, Rick is probably I think he's probably one of the most popular carnivores out in the community. I'd say
I don't know
should be
about
anyway.
popular. I think I'm one of the least. Well, I mean, I'm known, but I'm probably the least. I don't know how to describe it. The least conversed with, or I mean, I've been on a lot of interviews, but I'm not the popular carnivore. Let's put it that way, because I'm not
Oh,
one of the. I'm not one of the doctors. I'm not one of the guys that has the great physique. I'm not a guy that's rich. I'm the poor man that's been carnivore for years because I wanted to get a heart attack, and that's not what the carnivore community is all about.
yeah, that's true. Yeah,
All right,
most people are
just
trying to
keep being
avoid one.
yourself, Rick, and your day will come.
Uh,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
the main thing is by now I'm old enough. I've been doing this for so long. It's my lifestyle. It's one of those things I couldn't change. I know a lot of people you see they do carnivore videos and then they have problems and they cheat and they have issues and they have all these things they have to do, and for me it's like ah it doesn't matter because even when I try to eat non-carnivore foods, it never ends well. I mean, look, I was eating natural fruit from my own yard and I still had a problem. Can you imagine if I was eating duck food like everybody else, all that nasty stuff that comes in bags and boxes, the stuff that I walk by when I go to the grocery store? I can't even imagine somebody eating that crap. I didn't even know what a Twinkie or Ding Dong was until a few years ago because I thought that was a joke. I thought, is that really food? And you walk through the store and it's just box after box and can after can. You pick it up and there's a bunch of ingredients. I even looked one time in the store, they had plantain chips, which is one of the few non carnivore foods I eat. I picked up the bag. It said, I don't know how many things on it, some kind of oil and some kind of MSG. I'm like, what? You got to be kidding me. And those things were more expensive than meat. So I'm thinking, why would I pay $5 for a bag of these stupid chips when I could go down to the meat section, get the meat when it's on sale for $1.99 a pound, and be super satisfied with ground meat? To
Yeah.
me, it just didn't make sense. When I was taking care of my mom and she gave me these long shopping lists, I used to get so frustrated. I told my mom, what is all this? Oh, you don't know where that is? I said, Mom, when I go to the grocery store, I always go to the back of the store. I go to where the cooler is because that's where the meat is. I don't know anything else about the store. I didn't even know what a nectarine was. And that's a type of fruit. It's this type of peach. So what is a nectarine? And then these different types of bread. One was called challah, and the other one was flatbread. I'm like, I don't understand it. To me, it just seems strange. When I go to the grocery store, it's usually a very quick trip. I walk to the meat section, see what's on sale. I buy it. If they've got a good deal, I buy the whole stock. It's not unusual for me to walk out of there with 30 pounds of meat. And I never use a shopping cart, which my mom used to get mad at me. Why don't you get a shopping cart? Like, why do I need a shopping cart? I can carry what I'm going to eat. And I used to joke, I said, well, if I would have gone out there and killed it, I would have had to bring it home, wouldn't I? Oh, you're just a caveman. I can't believe I have a son like you. You have no manners. You'd eat something that was killed on the side of the road. I said, yeah, Mom, I've eaten roadkill before. I'm not going to turn it down if it's still good. If I find a deer on the side of the road and there's no flies on it and it's not rotten, I'm going to stick it in my car and take it home and cut it up. I'm not going to let it sit there and rot or let some predator eat it. I'm going to eat it myself.
Well, waste not, want not.
There you go. And the meat's usually good. So, I mean, I can look at it. If I see bugs in it, I'm not going to take it. But if
Yeah.
it's a fresh kill, I'm going to grab it.
Yeah, and you're gonna cook it anyway, so
I'm going to cook it anyway.
yeah, so that's all good. Yeah, and like I said, like that's a great way to be too, especially like now. I think being reliant is a good thing. Like whenever there's tough times, and there are always tough times, and things that are coming probably this year that a lot of people will sort of scramble to. You can avoid things like panic buying, because you're so self-reliant. You don't need to go to the store or anything. You got food all around you. You got everything you need. I think it's a good way
Hey,
to be.
remember when we had the virus and everybody was buying toilet paper? And I told a friend of mine, I don't have to worry because I don't use toilet paper. So why would I buy it? I don't use paper towels and I don't use toilet paper. I use soap and water and I have washcloths. If I got to wash my hands, I'll dry them off with a washcloth. If I have to use the bathroom, I'll use soap and water. And I always keep those little washcloths that I can use and then wash them later. So why would I go through rolls of toilet paper? It's ridiculous.
That's environmentally friendly too. You don't have to cut down so many trees.
That's
But
a tip for you if you run out of toilet paper.
you know, for out of the whole neighborhood, I'm the only one that doesn't even throw out garbage. I've gone months without throwing out garbage. Most of the time, when you see my garbage can full of trash, it's because I clean somebody else's house out. I do a lot of these clean outs when people move out or they get foreclosed or whatever. And that's where I make videos. This so-called food that people have in their kitchen. Instead of throwing it in the garbage, I throw it out there for the ducks or I compost it. And I do a lot of composting. The soil here is really bad. It's nothing but rock and sand. It's garbage. But in my yard, first of all, is like 12 inches higher than everybody else's. And then on top of that, it's black soil. When you dig into it, it looks like some beautiful garden or whatever. And everybody I know says, "Where did you get this dirt from?" I said, "I made it myself out of
Mm.
all the tree clippings and all the leftovers and whatever, the bones or whatever that I don't eat. They all get thrown out there, all the leaves and everything. I take a lawnmower and grind it up, put water on it, and it all turns to compost. And I've been doing
Yeah.
it for years. When I had a lawn, it was just some grass and it never really did much. It was maybe a few inches of dirt. Now it's this forest that's full of plants, and I've got papayas and bananas, and I got tomatoes, and I got mangoes and avocados and all kinds of stuff growing like crazy. And I used to have so many bugs here years ago when I lived here as a kid. Every time we'd plant something in the yard, the bugs would eat it. But now there's no bugs because there's ducks all over the place. So every
Yeah.
time the bugs they try to eat the plants, the ducks come. Plus I have the little lizards too. And there's insects in the ground, but they don't seem to eat the plants like they used to. There's just too many birds flying around. These insects don't have a chance. So
Yeah. That's
it's
good.
almost like a little ecosystem.
Yeah. Oh, it is. Absolutely is. People don't understand that either, too. Like, you can make your own soil, like from composting and that, and that's what cows do. Like cows and that. They're composting machines.
A
They
cow is a
compost.
solar powered composter.
Yeah. Exactly. But you can also do it yourself too if you don't have cows, like you're saying.
Well,
Like,
when I was a kid, we used to have cow pastures around here. And you know what people used to do when they trimmed their bushes and stuff like that? People had cattle. They had these, what they call Florida cattle. They have long horns on them, but they're smaller than regular cows. They eat anything. And I mean anything. And they also had goats. And all the hedge clippings and the grass and everything, they'd throw it over the fence, and the goats and the cattle would eat it. And it would come out the other end and it was just turned into compost. And that pasture was amazing because it had green grass even in the dry season. When all the yards were dying and people were putting water on it, this pasture was green. And I always was amazed by that. I think a lot of it is because there was so much bacteria and fungi. And that was the other thing. Kids used to go for those mushrooms that grow in the cow poop to get high. And I remember that there was all this fungi and all this bacteria, and you wouldn't believe it. Like now in the dry season, all the yards are dead. Well, my yard isn't, but when you went over there to that cow pasture, there was green grass everywhere. And that to me as a kid, that always amazed me. Now I know the reason why, but I never understood back then how that all worked.
yeah. Yeah, that's right. I mean, if you go have a look at if you do, like drive out to my folks' place, like it's all countryside, so for hours on end, and you can see the cattle farms, like the cattle stations, are still green because they got so many animals on there, but the crop farms they're always dry.
Mm-hmm.
There's a big
Yeah.
difference. My wife's grandmother, she did a lot of gardening too before she died. And now my wife's father, keeps it going. Actually, they just live like a very suburban house in Japan, just a small front yard and a little backyard. But they are always composting this, so they very rarely throw anything out. Everything goes into the soil, and they've got the richest soil. They grow lots of fruit and vegetables that they like to eat, and it's all year round. Even in Japan, where it snows a lot through winter, they still manage to grow quite a few things. A persimmon tree and things like that. But
Mm-hmm.
their soil is so rich, because they've been doing it for I don't know a long time. At least, I mean, I've known them, 20 years now. They were doing it for a long time before that. Her grandmother just loves gardening, and it's
Mm-hmm.
just a great way to build soil yourself. Put as much mulch in there as you can, compost it, and it's a good thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
It's amazing. I have friends that are vegans, and a couple of them have yards, and they never really were able to successfully garden. And I always used to tease them. I said, you go to the store, you buy all these vegetables, and then you throw out so much waste. And you open the garbage can. I was fixing her refrigerator one time, and I opened the can. It was terrible. It had this nasty odor. And when I was in the kitchen, I'm thinking, what is that nasty smell? It's terrible. And I went to throw out some plastic from a part that I bought, and the smell almost knocked me out. I said, how can you live with this? I said, oh, I got to take out the garbage. They put all this plant material into a plastic bag, and then they tie it up, and then it has that anaerobic fermentation going in there, and it stinks so bad. And then sometimes it makes this juice that runs out onto the floor, and it's just filthy, nasty. Then you have these garbage trucks coming, squeezing the garbage, the juice running out. You get behind a garbage truck, and it stinks. And in my yard, it's just a few meat scraps that the ducks eat, and if I do have any plant waste, I throw it right back outside, and then it all gets ground up. And when the soil is the way it is, you don't get that fermentation. Can you imagine how much methane is being released by all these garbage trucks and landfills and everything? They're complaining about the cows putting out methane. They're probably releasing more than that with just the food system they have. That's one of the experiments I want to do and see exactly how much methane a vegan or vegetarian produces versus a carnivore, because I have a feeling that they're doing more of it. Like I said, you drive behind any garbage truck and you smell that, and you know that that fermentation is going on in there. It's worse than being in a cow pasture.
Oh yeah, I mean that reminds me of before I moved here to the coast. We were living closer to the hospital for my treatments and things. But our apartment, it was just a really cheap little studio apartment, and the building just had one big skip bin, like a large rubbish bin for the whole apartment building. And like that was just it was just rancid. Like the food that some people eat, it stank so bad. And in summer, like that's all you could smell. You couldn't even open the window because the smell would come in.
Mm-hmm.
um but it's just, I mean, some people, like, sometimes you walk downstairs, you couldn't even get close to the carport, where, like, because it was basically at the beginning of the garage. So even walking through the garage to get to your car, it just, the putrid smell would just make you sick. It was horrible. But that's just, people eat the most disgusting food.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the thing is, you on garbage day around here, you can smell all the garbage. And my can, even when I throw out stuff that I've cleaned out of houses, normally anything organic goes into the compost. And I don't use the compost pile like some people do. My vegan friend, she struggled with a compost barrel and all that. I just compost directly on the ground. And the thing is, what I'm trying to do is imitate grazing animals, but in a mechanical way. So
Yeah.
if you make a pile, then you're going to have bacteria, and it has to be compost constantly turned. You have to turn the pile. But when you use an animal to do it, it's all ground up inside the animal. The bacteria work, and then it's ejected onto the ground directly. And then the sun dries it out, and then eventually it just breaks up with fungi. And that's what I do here. I throw everything on the ground, and then I use a lawnmower to grind it up to try to simulate what an animal would do. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not exactly the same, and it does involve some energy. But on the other hand, it works so well. There's no odor whatsoever. And this is what amazes my friends. They bring over their nasty vegetable waste and dump it on the ground. They come back a couple days later. It's like, I don't smell anything. I said, you're not going to smell anything. In fact, I even use animal waste. I have friends that have dogs and cats, and they were throwing this stuff away. The worst thing is, they were taking their dog waste, putting it in plastic bags, and then putting it into the garbage can. And one of my friends, she bought one of these stupid composters called a Lomi composter. It's like a bread machine, and you put the junk in it, and then it dries it out. And I tried to explain to her, do you know how much energy you're wasting with this stupid thing? How many kilowatts in a year? And I calculated it up, and it was more than like a big air conditioner. And she says, oh, I didn't know that. And then you're throwing it in the garbage anyway. So I said, just bring
Yeah.
it to my yard, throw it on the ground. Oh, what if you're not there? I said, I don't care. Just take it out of all the plastic bags, throw it on the ground. And then what I did, I set up a gasifier out of an old IBC tank. I have like two of them. And I tell them, bring your dog poop, bring your cat poop, bring all the waste over, grass clippings, whatever. And I throw it in there, and I make something called biogas. And the biogas ferments in this IBC tote, which is a square tank. It goes into an inner tube, and then I put weight on it, and it's piped right into my kitchen. I have an old natural gas stove, so it produces cooking gas. So all the gas that I cook with, it comes from poop and grass.
Yeah, that's
Wow,
awesome. Yeah. So I
that's
mean,
incredible self sufficiency.
yeah. That's amazing. Like, especially like as you said, you just live in a suburb,
Hmm.
so being so self-sufficient like that, it's pretty rare in a suburb. But it shows
Yeah.
you can do it. You know.
Well, you can't do it here because stupid code enforcement and all that, they have rules against it. But the way I get around it is through camouflage. I tell everybody when you fight a war, one of your best assets is camouflage. If they can't see what you're doing and they don't smell anything, they won't bother you. You can't see anything in my yard. It looks like a forest from the land or air, and there are no bad smells. Like I said, my neighbors are the ones that are always torturing me with the bad smell between the garbage cans, which are filthy, and then the laundry room. They use these chemical soaps that are so strong. When I open the door, I feel like I'm being fumigated. I don't know what they do. When they dry their clothes, it blows out this horrible chemical smell. It smells like a
Yeah,
combination of paint and bleach and who knows what else. What I do, I just use I make my own soap. I use lard or tallow, and I make my own lye from salt, and then I also use washing soda that I buy in the store. That's it. I don't like
yeah,
any kind of scents. It's like I have friends that have these cars. They have this little tank of oil that they put on the air conditioning vent in their car. And when I open the car, it smells like a prostitute. I said, "Why do you put this crap in your car? It's nasty." "Oh, I'm trying to freshen my car." I said, "Freshen your car? Why don't you clean the car?" You know? And I'm trying to think, why would their car be not fresh? Well, they eat in the car. Like, why in the world would you eat in your car? It's crazy.
mm.
I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
I cook.
People,
I cook in my car, but I usually
yeah,
don't eat in the car.
yeah. People today can't go that long. Can't even drive to do the shopping without eating these days. They're just grazing all day long.
The
It used
people
to
that
be like,
I work with people, and they're constantly snacking. That these stupid goldfish crackers and Takis and all this other garbage. They just eat this stuff constantly. I'm like, why do you do that? Why don't you eat a decent breakfast? They don't eat breakfast. They have a coffee, run out of the house, and then they graze all day. I joke. I said they're like a cow. I said you're like a goat or a cow. You're just eating all the time. They'll hit
yeah,
the 7-Eleven or they'll hit the Subway or whatever, grab something there. It's like, oh, and then they say, "Oh, you're going to grab something for lunch?" I said, "Nah, the canal's too far away." So I always joke about that.
yeah. Fair enough. Yeah, I like that one. Canal's too far away. Yeah. So I mean, I don't know what it is. Like people just they're so addicted to food. It's like smoking now. Like they can't go 10 minutes without getting something to eat, or they see a McDonald's or something, they just have to go get something. Um,
Hmm.
Eating in the cars, so the cars smell like whatever they're eating, which is usually takeaway like McDonald's, and it just smells like a
Yeah.
grease trap. Yeah,
Oh, and that's the
yeah,
worst part. A lot of times, if they're looking for something a little what they think is better quality, they'll go to the Chick-fil-A, which is not that far from here, and they line up at the drive-through over there, and it's like the smell is terrible. I don't know what it is about fast food, but I start feeling like I'm going to throw up because it has this really strange smell to it. And chicken. I know what chicken's supposed to smell like. I cook chicken in tallow or lard, and it has a really good smell to it. But this fast food chicken, for some reason, it smells almost like paint. It's like when you used to use the old fashioned oil paint that you paint your house with. And I think it's because of all the seed oils they use to cook it. And then
yeah,
the other problem is you can't even find the chicken. You look at this thing, it's covered up with some type of mystery coating. It looks like a bread glove or something like that. And the chicken's like buried inside. Like I just can't believe it. You know, I would rather just fire up my portable grill and make some heart attack chicken right there in the parking lot. I've done that before.
yeah. That's cool. I mean, that's just being prepared too. Like take your food with you.
Exactly. I
So
normally take ground beef, and I'll eat it
yeah.
cold. I don't care if it's cold.
What do you do if you're on the go, Rod?
Um, if I usually just go without. Yeah, because typically I fast until around anywhere between now and 12. So yeah, I can't. It's not something I generally run into. Yeah, so I just wait
Okay.
until I get back home. Yeah, I guess because
Yeah,
I work from home and I'm not out much.
yeah.
Hmm.
I do the same. I don't. I mean, I don't. I know it's kind of a big thing. Like a lot of carnivores, they go like they'll stop by McDonald's and just buy the meat patties and stuff like that. That to me just seems being. I mean, you can prepare a little bit better than that. Just take your food with you, like Rick does.
Yeah, or
Um,
I'll hit the grocery store, and then I can cook it
yeah,
up right there. That's all.
yeah, a lot healthier choice, I think. Just take a cooker with you and go to the grocery store, something
Yeah,
like that.
or
And it's
cook
certainly,
it on the engine. I cook it on the
yeah,
engine sometimes.
yeah, yeah. That's a good way to do it too.
I got a
Yeah.
video on that.
Rick, yeah, Rick will cook like if he's got to go somewhere, he'll wrap it up in foil, put it on the engine block, and then he'll sort of drive it. He'll drive somewhere, and it'll be cooked by the time he gets there.
That's right, cooked to perfection.
That's clever.
It's his timer. It's a
Well,
cooking timer.
my vehicles have rust holes in them, so you could smell when it's cooking. And I cook by smell, even in the house. I know exactly when it's ready. I never burn my food, and I have a really good sense of timing. Even if I'm working outside, like today, I was making heart attack chicken, and I was cooking. I couldn't smell it outside, but I knew I came in, and then I smelled it. And I went back, and at the right moment I came in, the chicken was ready. It was delicious. So yeah, I had someone tell me one time that my car smelled like meat. I was at my truck. Oh, your truck smells like a steak. I said, yeah, because there's one cooking on the engine. Like, what? He was shocked. I said, oh, you want some? He's like, no, I don't want that. It's cooking on the engine. It's going to be all full of oil. I said, well, don't worry. My truck runs on seed oils, so you got nothing to worry about. I was like, what's the seed? What's the seed oil? Oh, vegetable oil. Because they eat all
Yeah,
that fast food.
that's a good point too. Most people don't even know what seed oils are. They just know everything as vegetable oils.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, it's, and a lot of them don't even know that either that they're vegetable oils. But whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I agree. Like, I think be prepared. Take food with you, or like you said, like
Grocery store.
just go to a grocery store. They're always around. Just as many of them as there are McDonald's and the rest of them.
And
Um,
for the cost of McDonald's is so expensive, just buy yourself one of those propane grills. You can pick one of
yeah,
those for less than $100. You get those little screw-in propane cartridges, and if you're cheap like me, you reuse them. What I do, I take like a big barbecue tank, and then I have a little adapter, and I'll fill that little tank with propane, and I'll keep it in my truck. And then if I don't feel like cooking on the engine, or if I want to make heart attack food, I'll take some lard or tallow with me in a container and just put it into a pot, fire up that grill, and I can have delicious fried food faster. Well, I mean, not faster than fast food, but by the time they wait in line and they have to eat that crap and struggle with the order and then pay for all that money, I mean, they spend sometimes $20 on fast food. I could have a much better meal for one quarter of the cost and delicious.
yeah. I mean, a camping grill, like a camping stove, like they cost about $20. You go to a
There you
hardware
go.
store and just we've got one. I think that's something everyone should have, like a camping stove. Whether you take it with you to cook or whatnot. But we have it always ready because after the earthquake, when you had no electricity, anything like that, you had nothing to cook on. So it's something you need to. I think everyone should have just in case. Um,
I've cooked in the back of my truck on a charcoal grill. I've had people say, "Oh, you can't cook here, you can't cook there." I just cook right in the truck. They what are they going to do? If they don't have a grill in the park, I'll just cook right there. That one time they called the cops, but there was nothing they could do. So, am I doing anything illegal? No, you're not. They just thought that something was on fire. I said, I got a grill in my truck. They actually sell tailgate grills that people use when they go to football games and stuff like that. It
yeah, that's
plugs
a
right
big
in the
thing, I
ditch.
think, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So there's no excuse to have to eat fast food. You could
yeah,
cook wherever you want. I think it's just a lot of people, especially the younger guys that I know, they are afraid of the kitchen. I think the kitchen is the most scary thing to them because they don't want to try to cook anything. They think they're going to mess it up. I said, how hard is it to cook a steak? I can cook burgers faster than you could ever imagine.
yeah, yeah. I agree. Yeah, I keep. I don't say this a lot, but I do like to tell people that you should be prepared. Have like some sort of preparation going at home, like food stores and like camping equipment or hunting equipment, even like just fishing equipment, so you can get your own food and cook it, and like for any kind of emergency, because there's always a possibility. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes even just the power might go out for some reason. You don't know what reason it might go out, and you'll be surprised just how much just a few very cheap items will help you out. Like a
Mm-hmm.
camp stove, a fishing rod, a bit of food stores and water stores, and you can still be quite comfortable.
I had a
So
video I did of a barbecue grill I picked from the side of the road that somebody threw out, and I was using wood that I cut from trees. I just trimmed the trees and made charcoal out of it and cooked my steaks on it. So it's not that hard to do. In fact, you could just get some rocks and build a fire and cook your meat on that. It's not complicated.
no, that's right. Yeah, but like today, so few people even think about how to do things like that. Like you were talking about the rotary phone, like showing kids they couldn't even operate a rotary phone. I mean, how hard is that to work out?
They
Honestly.
they can't even remember their own phone number. That's the funny thing. A lot of people, they're like, whoa, they don't know anybody else's number. I know everybody's number because
Yeah,
since I don't use a cell phone, if I'm going to call my friend, I'll just dial it up and that's it.
yeah,
And, it's just a lost skill, I think. I think that
yeah,
part of the mind is used for something else now.
yeah, or just dormant. I guess they just don't use it at all. You know.
Exactly.
Um,
DC, I gotta run, buddy. I gotta get
no
these
worries, mate. Thanks for
kids out
joining
of
us,
here
Rod. I
before they
appreciate that,
tear my
mate.
place apart.
It's good to see you
All
again.
right, yeah,
So
yeah. Thanks for having me on. It's good to meet you too, Rick. It was it was
Yes.
a fun conversation,
yeah.
and thanks for everyone else for coming in and supporting DC's channel and the rest of us.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and if anyone wants to catch up with Rod's channel, Stay Strong, Live Long, go check it out and give a subscribe if you haven't already. It's a great channel. There's a lot of great information that you might like as well. So, but
Yeah,
I'll put a
thanks for that.
link in the description for you as well.
Yeah, I'll get a chat with Dr. Chafee coming up. I
Oh,
think
great!
it's at the end of the month. So yeah,
Oh,
definitely that'll be
excellent.
the next one, if not something in between them.
Okay, very cool. All right then, mate. Well, look out for that one.
All right,
All
no
right, see you,
worries.
mate.
Okay,
Thanks.
see you guys later.
Yeah,
Yeah, there we
yeah.
go.
So, yeah. Yeah, I agree, Rick. Like, I mean, it's a lost skill, and it's something a lot of people. I think everyone just takes for granted that how easy it is to do everything now. Like you say, they don't bother remembering phone numbers because just tap the screen and it calls their friends, sort of thing. So they just take that for granted.
Yeah.
But and it's the same as like now they like here in Australia they're trying to push this like digital ID and cashless society garbage. What's going to happen when the power goes out? Which like this was something there was a lot of trouble for a lot of people in Japan when the earthquake hit, when there was no power, they had no money because they just kept using their damn cards, right?
Hmm. Yeah, the
Uh,
other thing too, everybody now does everything virtually. They
yeah,
laugh at me because I still have cassette tapes and CDs and records. I got all that old stuff. I got books. There's books all over the place. So why do you
yeah,
need that? It's all online. I said, yeah, but
yeah,
all it takes is one coronal mass ejection or an EMP, and then it all ends. Power goes
yeah,
off. There's no internet. What are you going to do? Well, down here, when we have a hurricane, we lose power. We have no internet. People go crazy. They start acting weird because, especially now, I mean, I can only imagine, 20 years ago it was just starting. But can you imagine now we lose power? Like we have another Hurricane Andrew, there's no power for a month. They're going to go nuts with no air conditioning, no electricity. And me, I'll just go out back and check out the generator. And after the storm, I'll pick up as much wood and debris as I can and just start cooking it up. All that plastic that I got, I'll cook up diesel. It's kind of fun. To me, it's a challenge. Just like when my truck broke down and I had no transportation, I had to get my van running. I was riding a bike for a couple of months until I was
yeah,
able to get the van running. And I didn't complain. It's like, well, hey, it's just another challenge. I like to challenge myself because I think it builds character. If everything is just too easy, if you could just snap your fingers and get whatever you want, then I think it degrades your abilities, and then it turns you into a person that really can't handle anything by themselves. And I think that's something we need to avoid.
Yeah, I agree. You do when everything is too easy, you do lose skills, and it, I think you also lose coping skills as well. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, when I mean something bad happens, you might be put out for a day or two until you sort of calm down and you think, okay, how can I fix this sort of thing?
Mhm.
Um, like it sort of throws you off because it's not always something you expect, and so you might get a bit angry about it. But when you calm down, you realize, okay, well, it's happened. There's nothing you can do about it except, okay, let's try and fix it.
Mhm.
And I think the way that everything is set up right now, where everything is just so easy to get, those sort of coping skills are lost as well. You know,
Mhm.
um, as well as skills that you have just to do these things as well. Like everyone expects someone else to do it.
Right.
You know?
And that's like I had a person that I was doing business with, and the car that we were in, his car just had a flat tire. So the first thing he does is call the roadside service. I said, well, why don't you just put the spare on there, and then, we could get to where we're going, and then you could call in there because we're on the side of the road. People are going by, and it's like, what do you mean spare tire? I said, don't you have a spare tire? I don't know. We open the back of the car. There's a little donut tire in there, and there's a tire tool. And I said, have you ever opened this up? No, I don't. I don't. Just call the roadside service and they'll do it for me. Like, how long does that take? Oh, it could take an hour. I said, we can have this tire on here in 10, 15 minutes and be out of there. It's like,
Yeah.
wow, amazing.
Yeah, it's crazy, like people can't even think to change their own tires anymore. Like that, like one of the most simple, basic mechanical jobs that you can do. You
Mm-hmm.
know, um, and you're like any sort of problem, and they just take it to a mechanic, okay, and they'll pay whatever they want for it because they don't know any different, and they
Right.
complain how expensive things are. So, but
Mm-hmm.
they won't do anything for themselves.
Well, that's the funny thing. These people I know, they make a lot of money. They make a lot more than I do. And they complain constantly. Everything costs so much, and I have so many problems, and they're always complaining to me. I said, I never complain about those things. Yeah, because
Mm.
you fix everything yourself. So, yeah, but you could learn too. There's nothing
Yeah.
telling you that you can't learn. Oh, well, I
Mm.
make too much money. I said, well, evidently, even though you make too much money, you're not able to pay for all the problems you have. Maybe it would be better not to worry about making that much money and learn a few things, because as
Mm.
you said, when things go bad, you can't rely on everybody else to fix the problem for you. And
No, that's right.
even if you don't fix the problem yourself, if you know what's wrong with it, then it's an advantage, because then you know whether it's a critical thing or if it's something you can put off.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. One of the comments here, I think, yeah. It's good to be a little bit of a prepper, and for hard times.
Mm-hmm.
Part of preparing, being a prepper, is having skills and learning how to do things for yourself as well.
you know
And
Speaking of the
being healthy.
comments, yeah, speaking of the comments, you see the comment from Michigan Hay. This guy, his name Ray Moses. He does regenerative farming, and he raises cattle.
Oh,
He does
cool.
things the old-fashioned way. You should check out his channel if you get a chance, because you
Yeah,
can
well,
learn a lot from it. I mean, this guy he's knowledgeable. So
cool.
I'm really impressed with what he can do. That there's still people like that out there. There's not a lot of them, but we still exist.
Yeah. Was that called Michigan Hay?
Yes.
Okay, I'll check that out. Yeah, but like that's the thing. Like being a part of being a prepper is also about being healthy and having skills to stay that way. Um,
Mm-hmm.
there we go, Michigan Hay,
Mm-hmm.
just sub. So let's check that out. Just show some people here. Here's a channel for you all to check out. Rick recommends,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe learn some stuff from. You know, this is another thing people don't understand too is farmers, okay, can teach you a lot because
Mm-hmm.
they, like yourself, they do most things themselves. You have to be a jack of all trades to be a farmer. You have to
Mm-hmm.
be able to repair machinery, build fences, look after animals, and you have to stay healthy to do all that.
Right.
You know, so
And you can see, these farmers that do a lot of things, some of them are in pretty good shape. I mean, you see Maggie
oh
the
yeah,
rancher that's real popular, that she's
yeah,
been eating the carnivore diet. And
yeah.
yeah, there's definitely a resourcefulness there. My mom always used to joke with me, said that I should have grown up on a farm because I think the same way that the farmers do. But I think that's a mindset that can really work for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because I mean, you grow up like learning to be more self-sufficient, more self-reliant. You're more confident in your abilities as you grow as an adult too.
Hmm.
So I think that's another thing too. People just don't have the confidence to learn new skills these days.
Right.
And they just think, oh, something's wrong with the car, or they panic. Think,
Well, that's it. Ever since I've been young, I've always been a little on the poor side. And even when I had money, when I had a business that made good money, it just seemed wrong to me to have something I didn't understand. I didn't want to have any kind of technology or vehicle or whatever that I didn't understand. So
yeah,
even if I had the money to pay somebody else to fix it, I'd like to know how it worked and what was wrong
yeah,
with it. And I think that also helps with your mind because when you depend on other people and you become a dependent, you're a lot easier to control when you know how things work and you have a better idea of what's going on. I think it really helps you. Even if things aren't going exactly the way you want them to, you say, well, I've done this before and I have an idea what's going to happen. And it makes your stress go down. And I think in many ways you feel more satisfied. Even if you're poor, if you're able to make things happen, I think that you can be pretty rich when it comes to the emotional side because I know people that have money and some of them are really dysfunctional. Let's put it that way. They
yeah.
get upset all the time, and everything is a problem. But
Yeah.
being able to be self-sufficient really makes a difference.
Yeah, so that's the thing too. Like, if you don't have those skills, everything does look like a big problem. You know, even small problems in our imagination, they always look bigger than they really are. You know,
Right.
and I think one of the comments there, Carrie was saying, growing up poor makes you more resilient as well. I agree. We were very poor. Something like a lot of the time we just didn't have food in the house, or we didn't even have a house sometimes.
Yeah.
Um, but you tend to try and find ways to get by without the money, and I think necessity builds, or innovation comes from necessity. So
Mm-hmm.
you're more innovative if you grow up a bit poorer. So you tend not to look at them as such big problems when you can fix it yourself. And
Right.
the way I look at it now too is, why pay someone else to do something you can do yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the only time I sort of get anyone else to do it is if it might be cheaper for them to do it than yourself. Rather, like if you don't have the tools or you don't have the parts that you need, sometimes it may
Mm-hmm.
work out cheaper for them to do it. But other than that, if you can do it yourself, why would you pay someone else to do it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
It's
that's right. I mean, it doesn't make sense. Now, when I pay somebody else, it's like when I have a business and I have employees and I pay them to do a certain job. That's one thing. But for my own personal life, I tend to just like doing things myself. The other thing is when I do it myself, it's generally a better quality than what somebody
yeah,
else would do because they don't put the detail into it that I would.
yeah, exactly right too. Because I mean, when you're paying someone else to do it, they're paid by the job basically, or by the hour, and they just need to get it in and out as quick as possible, sort of thing. But when you do it yourself, you want it to be the best it can be, especially like if you're working on your home or your car or anything like that. You need it to be safe, and you want it to have a certain quality, or at least you want it to last. Because you don't want to do it
Hmm.
again. You know, that
You know,
mechanics, for example, they don't care if it fails in a month or so because they want you to come back.
right. Well, that's it. And even when I do work for other people, I always try to do the best work that I can because my reputation's on the line. I don't want to do some rig job and then have
Yeah,
something fail and then I'm the bad guy. But
I agree.
a lot of times I see things that are just shocking to me. And
Mm.
a lot of times they'll take something out that's older. Well, it's not right, and they'll build something new, and they think it's great, but it's really cheaply done. And then some water leaks, and then you have mold and mildew, and everything falls apart, and it turns into a disaster. But
Yeah,
I don't know. In my case, I'd rather build something that will last. It may not be the prettiest thing in the world, but it's going to be more durable, and it's going to serve the purpose better.
yeah, I agree. Whenever you do a job, you're putting your name on that job. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so I think you should do it to the best of your ability, and
Right.
otherwise, you're degrading your name. You know,
Right.
that's what I think. So
That's right.
unfortunately, not a lot of people think like that. So
Well, that's true. That's why the world is in the mess that it's in. Everything
yeah,
is for short term profit. And a lot of it, as I've said for years, comes from the monetary system. It's debt based. And the idea is to get the quickest return, the shortest amount of time, and then move on to something else. And you just create problem after problem. That's why when
yeah,
you go to the dump, there's so much stuff thrown out, bunch of furniture and clothing and just a lot of stuff that people didn't want. They buy it on an impulse, it doesn't serve the purpose or it breaks and then they throw it away and they get something else. It's just a
yeah,
constant churning, constantly, got to get the latest phone, got to get the latest car, get this and that. And nobody
yeah.
really cares about if it
Yeah,
lasts.
no, that's right. And like you were saying with the materials too, the materials get cheaper and cheaper because they get worse and worse. Because I mean, the factories do the same thing. They just want the cheapest product, for like the highest sort of turnout sort of rate. And it goes the same for everything. And talking to like saying like everything is debt based is so true. Like especially like the biggest example, you look at the last few years, and governments around the world spent like trillions of dollars, basically, from around the world perspective,
Mm-hmm.
all going straight to pharmaceuticals. And you
Mm-hmm.
think, this is all taxpayer dollars, because this keeps, health systems like we have here in Australia, like Medicare, for example, that is another tool to keep the country in debt. How do you enslave a people? You keep their country in debt. So
Mm-hmm.
you're tax slaves. You're forever paying off this tax debt, and this tax debt will keep on growing because you've got unhealthy people, eating junk food, like this processed junk food, which will need medications, which will need taxpayer subsidies, which means more health debt for the country, along with everything else like foreign aid and everything else that they do. But that's just one of the tools. Being unhealthy is one of the tools that they use to keep you in, like, the country in debt. Um, people don't even think about that stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
that's just the way. That's one of their tools to sort of keep us in line. So this is
Mm-hmm.
why, another reason why you need to be healthy is why, to get off medications. Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Well, that's it. See, I'm lucky. I've never been on any medications. And when, like, what was his name was talking about his sciatica and his back trouble. It's like I've never had back trouble, and I'm a tall guy. I'm 6'6". All the tall guys have back trouble. I don't.
yeah,
I've never had any chronic pain. I haven't had. Every time I see people talk about they've gone on the carnivore diet to basically cure all these problems, I go, wow, I didn't know that a human being could have that many health issues, the digestive problems, the so-called brain fog. I have no idea what that stuff is. And it's like, wow, can a person really be that sick? And how could a person live like that day after day after day? And then going to the doctor and then getting some chemical concoction, which doesn't really solve the problem. I mean, it's crazy. And the more I look at it, I've been on so many carnivore channels, commenting and looking at these channels because it's just fascinating to me. That is it possible for a human being to have that many problems? Look at your example. Look at what you went through. and
Yeah.
you had to do it yourself. The medical system couldn't fix your problem. You're the
No.
one that had to take charge and make it happen. It's that
Yeah.
same self-sufficiency theory.
Yeah. Yeah. It really is. I mean, um, I don't know what would have happened if I didn't have any treatment, but their solution was just more and more treatment, and it certainly made things a lot more difficult, and I think worse going through treatment. So, um, yeah, that's their solution for everything, and it doesn't matter how big or how small it is. If your cholesterol is high here, take a statin. It's ridiculous. Um, Actually, here's a good comment. I said, like, the best thing about technology today is like having a library 24/7 and teachers on demand. I can learn from anything I want now. That is very true. That is probably the best thing about technology, like the internet. You can learn very easily. You can. I mean, even YouTube. Just go on YouTube and you can find any information you're really after. How to do things around the home, how to do things about your car, how to do things. Great doctors like Chafee
Mm-hmm.
and Pew and Bart Kay and so many people. Really, you can get so much information. It really is a fantastic tool,
Mm-hmm.
or it can be if in the right hands. Anyway,
Yeah.
um,
Another thing that I've noticed that when I compare myself to other people, a lot of times when they try to work on things, they tend to get injured. They tend to be more accident prone. And I work with a lot of questionable and dangerous things, and I never get injured. And I wonder if being on the carnivore diet for so long, your mindset is different. I don't have that impulsiveness that a lot of times people, they'll start trying to tear things apart and they get frustrated and then they end up getting injured. Even my dad used to get injured, and I never get injured. In fact, I
yeah,
was I was cutting up a car today in shorts. I didn't even I was barefoot, and I never get hurt. I'd spend a lot of time barefoot outside, but I hardly ever have a problem. I mean, the only time I've ever really gotten injured is when I go into sort of an artificial environment like an office and I don't expect danger to be there. And then I'll hit myself on something or stub my toe or whatever. But when I'm working in the sort of dangerous environments that I work in, I don't have injuries. I go up on the roof, I go out in the yard, I work with equipment, and I never have a problem because I always stop and think, what am I doing? What can happen? What am I working with? Do I have a fire extinguisher handy? Do I have all the tools that I need? And I don't get mad when I'm working on my job, but a lot of times people will get mad and then they'll end up hurting themselves rather than solving the problem. So and then if you think about it, if people really have this many problems, all these inflammation and stuff like that, it's like when I was working outside and I got hit with a velvet bean, which is a type of vine that has this itchy hairs. When that stuff is attacking you, you can't think straight. And I get madder and madder, and I have to get out of there. I have to go in the bathroom and clean up. So it makes me wonder if the reason that people have so many problems and have so many injuries is that maybe they have all these health conditions and they can't think straight because their whole nervous system is constantly being stimulated and it just makes them impulsive. I wonder if that might be what it is.
yeah, yeah. I think so too. I think light has a lot to do with it as well. Like you were just saying, you spend a lot of time outside barefoot, so you ground a lot. Yeah, you
Mhm.
spend a lot of time grounded.
Right.
That electromagnetic energy really helps you a lot. Like I said before, like grounding and light it was where most of our energy comes from. We're electrical. That's why
Mhm.
we have so much water in our body because we are electrical. Our cells are. So I think that makes a big difference as well. And you said that when you are inside, you're sort of a bit more clumsy. Yeah,
Yeah, when I'm inside of an office in my own
yeah.
house. Now
You got to take light.
my house is extremely cluttered and there's a lot of things here. One wrong move and you could end up in really bad shape. But I don't have
Mm,
accidents in my house. It also
mm,
is old. There is some mold and mildew in here. Once in a while I'll get the sniffles, but it's amazing that a place like this, which isn't even brightly lit, this is a very dimly lit house. I have mostly incandescent lights. So, but when I go into an office, especially with those fluorescent lights, it's
yeah,
very difficult for me because I have trouble sometimes staying awake. You get into one of these offices and you sit down and you just, I'll start dozing off. But when I'm at home, I don't have that problem. And when I'm outside, I never have that problem. So, and it's like another friend of mine says, well, your house is like a dungeon. But I think because it helps me sleep because there's not that much light, and it's somewhat dim. And I have windows all over. I have a really big window in the living room. I have windows all over the place.
Yeah.
But a lot of these offices, they have very small windows, and a lot of the windows, they have that UV coating that's supposed to be energy efficient. I don't have that
Yeah.
on mine. It's just clear. In fact, a
Yeah.
lot of people I know have tinted windows in their cars. I don't like that. All my vehicles, I have just a regular clear glass because I don't like the tinted windows.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Especially like older cars as well. I don't like that so much. But like you're saying, like, so you have incandescent lights, you have more natural light.
Mm-hmm.
It's yeah, fluoro lights and LED lights. They really affect the way the way we sort of get around, the way our hormone production, everything like that. So
Hmm.
I can see why you would feel different in a fluorescent office. Yeah.
Yeah.
But imagine working like that every day. You
That's
see
what I
why
was
people.
thinking about.
Mm,
It's just I couldn't imagine having to be in those stupid cubicles. And again, I was in IT. I started a company in 1995. We were setting up networks. Now, I was doing a lot of driving around, going from place to place, and but I did spend a good amount of time indoors. And especially when you're in those server rooms, there are no windows, and you lose track of time. And then the productivity, you start out really getting things done, and then after a while, you get stuck, and then it's like you can't think straight, and you start running into configuration problems and issues, and you get frustrated. I go, man, I got to go do something. So a lot of times, what I would do, I'd take a break, I'd go outside, and I always look forward to lunch because that's when I'd light up my grill. I'd be out there in the parking lot of the office complex cooking up my food, and everybody's like, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm having lunch." Well, where are you going for lunch? I'm going to my truck. Where else would I go? Oh, you don't want to go to McDonald's or, Wendy's. I'm like, why would I go there?
yeah,
I'm gonna cook. I got my own food in the truck. And I always have a cooler. There's always meat in the cooler. If I can have a steak, and it's really funny because after cooking up the steak and eating the steak, then the stress level just goes down. It's like, oh, and then I start thinking again, and I go in there. It's like, oh, I know what's wrong, and I'll start fixing it. So I get that sort of like, I don't know how to describe it, but it's like a second shot of energy and thought. And then after a while, you start getting into the rut again. It's like, oh, a problem. But that was always like that. So I could
yeah,
get started in the morning, and then around noon when I had my lunch, by that time I was burned out. Then I'd have my lunch and I'd be super energized. But then the problem is all the other guys I work with, after they had their lunch in about an hour, they were out of it. It was
yeah,
like they couldn't think straight, and it was terrible. I'm like, come on, come on. They just, I don't know how to describe it. And it took till maybe 3 or 4 o'clock because before their minds started coming back online, and then they're in a hurry to get out and go home. So that's the way it used to be.
yeah, yeah. I can understand that. Like you went outside, you charged up with not well, meat and with light, sunlight, and everyone else is sitting inside with their fluoro lights, or they go to McDonald's and they're sitting in the fluoro lights and they fill up on junk food. So
Hmm.
like the combination of the food damage, the light damage, everything like that. Yeah, it's amazing. People survive to retirement. You know,
Hmm.
living like that. Um, like Scooby the Dog saying here, there's light pollution and things with LED lights, and it's not just the LEDs either. It's the fluoro lights. The fluoro lights are any fake light like that. The
Hmm.
incandescents are not so bad, but that's why they got rid of them. That's why they stopped selling them. Yeah.
Why'd they stop selling them?
Well, yeah, because they're a little bit healthier than the LEDs.
Oh, what, for a while I worked doing electrical work, and they had a bunch of these traffic light bulbs. That's what I've been using. These things
Mm,
are 130 watts.
wow.
But the thing is, this is the interesting thing. I have those bulbs in my bathrooms, and I have them in the kitchen, but I don't leave the light on. The fluorescent and the LED lights, every time, especially the fluorescents, when you turn them on and off, they burn out quicker. But those
Mm,
heavy duty incandescent bulbs, the bulb in my bathroom, it's been there. I think I put it in there in 1996 when I built that bathroom, and I have
wow.
never changed it. The bulb is still there. Now, I don't use a bathroom that much. I use a toilet once a day, and basically I take a bath in there, but that's it. But that bulb hasn't gone bad, and it's because they're made for traffic lights, and the lights I have in here, those are only 40-watt incandescents. They're in these little like globes, I have like just like a glass globe that hangs down, so they're really low power. But the thing
Yeah.
is, even though they take more energy than the LED, they last longer. And when those LED bulbs go bad, they start flickering funny, and sometimes they'll even emit a sound. I can hear very high frequency sounds. So anything that would have a power supply with some type of high frequency regulator, I can hear that. A lot of these inverters, you know, I do occasional electrical jobs for people that have EVs like Teslas and stuff like that, and they have some type of charge controller in there that emits a high frequency, and I can actually hear that when it turns on, so I know when it's charging. So
Wow.
some of these bulbs really bother me, so I can't have
It's
them.
40 years of carnivore has turned you into a dog.
I don't know what it is, but it's crazy. The worst part is that my sense of smell is somehow warped because when I get around some of these chemicals, I can't stand it. The air fresheners are the worst. Those
Yeah, I
plugins,
hate them too. Yeah,
those stupid
they
plugins
smell
that people
putrid.
use. Yeah, they're
Oh yeah,
terrible.
they're putrid. Yeah, that's another thing too. Is like, you see these things advertised all the time. It's like, there's automatic spray sense that that you walk past, like with the sensor, you plug into the wall, you walk past it, and it sprays,
Hmm.
air freshener. Well, they call it air
Yeah,
freshener, but scented air crap. Those
yeah.
things are putrid. I mean, how can you imagine your house smelling like that all the damn time? Oh
Hmm.
God.
I've had people come to my house and say that it smells like meat. It's like your house smells like meat. Oh, that's good. I don't mind that.
Yeah.
That's what they say. It smells like meat. But I go in other people's houses. The other thing that I really don't understand when I go in somebody else's house to do a repair is the amount of dust. There is this huge amount of dust in every house. And my house is dumpy. It's run down, and I don't get that dust. And I don't understand it. A lot of times I have the windows open. I would like to know why some people have so much dust and I have hardly any.
Yeah. Yeah. I think again, I think that's part of the lights as well. Like these new lights, they attract a lot of dust. I guess I'm
Hmm.
not sure, but I think it's part of it anyway. Question: do you think mammograms are safe? Thoughts? They mash the breast and break up any tumors and spread the possible cancers. Radiation is not good either. I think sonograms are safer. Yeah, I would agree. How about you, Rick?
I don't know. I don't know much about medical procedures, but I know my mom used to get that. Yeah, there's some kind of X-ray. That can't be good, especially when
Yeah,
you're stuffing them in there and
yeah.
radiating them.
Any sort of radiating a tumor is actually really bad for it. They do.
Yep.
That does actually sort of feed them and it sort of helps them spread. So
Hmm.
for that, I would say I agree that they're not that safe. And another thing for you to check is, um, like recently a study came out, and there's a not so much causation, but there's a correlation between high oxalate count and breast cancer. Every sufferer of breast cancer has been high in oxalates. So if you have a high oxalate count, that is now one of the markers that they are looking for when they diagnose breast cancer. So that's another thing you could check. If I think that would be something you might check before having any sort of X-ray or test done to just to be safe on the safe side. So there's actually I did leave a link to that study in my community page if you want to check that out. It's very interesting because it does show what oxalates can do when built up. It's not just like an arthritic sort of thing. These small crystals they block cycles in your body that will cause diseases such as cancer. So yeah, go check it out. It's certainly well worth it. So that's something I would check anyway. If you're going to check if you didn't want to go through those sort of scans, I would do an oxalate count check. And if you're high, then maybe refer to the test afterwards. Yeah. You can tell your doctor. Yeah, that's true too. You can tell your doctor you don't want to do the mammogram and insist on a sonogram. So there are safer ways to test these things. Yeah. Let me see. Yes, I had a breast biopsy and the tissue was calcium crystals. Yeah, calcium oxalate. Yeah. Yeah, that's why. Anyone with breast cancer, they're always high in oxalates. So do an oxalate count test first, I think, would be, and that was certainly a good way for you to monitor any sort of if you have at any kind of risk. If you just do a blood test and an oxalate test, you don't have to go through those scans so much. So yeah. Thank you. It's been good so far. That's good. Annual check end of this month. Last year I had an MRI last year, but I don't know if it was safer than mammogram. Yeah, I would definitely try and err on the side of safety. Any kind of like X-ray on any kind of tumors or any sort of radiation on tumors like that they do actually use direct radiation treatment on tumors to try and shrink them, which I think like to actually radiate the tumors themselves. But I would, and I did do that when after my first round of chemo treatment. I did do that. I wouldn't do that again because more often than not they tend to spread the tumors and break them up, sort of thing. So it's not real cool. Yeah. All right. So, any other questions, guys? Been at it for like almost 2 hours, so I don't want to take up too much of Rick's time. He'd be getting late into the night over there. So we might call it a night. We'll do this again soon, though. I think Rick's always great to talk to, and like catching up with him too. In future, if you want to join the live, I always have the link up in the chat there somewhere. I've got it up there a couple of times, so you feel free to join us if you wish, and we'll call it a night. All right.
That's
so
right.
Thanks everyone. Thanks for joining us. I hope you enjoyed that chat. It's always great information talking to Rick too. He's always got some great information to sort of share with everyone. So go check out his channel if you haven't already. It's well worth it. It's a lot of fun too. All right. Thanks everyone. See you all soon. Bye-bye.
All right.